Discover the incredible journey from a millionaire's secret wish for a loving home and family. Michael stared out over the glowing cityscape, the twinkling lights below offering no solace for the ache he felt inside. He was a self-made millionaire, living in a lavish penthouse that towered above the very pulse of New York City. Yet despite the accolades and wealth stacked in his empire, he felt utterly alone. Each day began and ended in silence, punctuated only by the distant sounds of bustle and chaos 3 floors down. An existence peppered with reminders of a childhood where warmth and love were reserved for accomplishments. The memories gnawed at him as he pushed away the breakfast that sat untouched on the marble counter. Rising from his seat, he paced, caught in an internal loop of doubt and yearning. Did he want more out of life beyond portfolio meetings and stock prices? The question haunted every waking moment, a relentless whisper that had urged him to step out of his gilded cage. Finally, in a moment of desperation, he decided to volunteer at a local community center. The faces he encountered there reflected struggles he'd never fully fathomed. They forged connections through laughter, through dealing with the mundane's adversity, and amidst them stood Claire, a single mother working multiple jobs to feed her 2 kids. Their conversations brought something alive in him, igniting a flicker of hope that perhaps connection wasn't an elusive dream after all. He tossed and turned each night, entangled in thoughts. The very idea of touching base with his estranged brother worked like an adrenaline rush, bringing both clarity and dread. Could he confront the ghosts of his past? The family ties frayed by neglect and hurt? The longing for belonging pushed at the corners of his mind, forcing him to clutch at straws even as a darker shadow loomed closer. A former business partner, embittered and spiteful, hung like a sword over his carefully built empire, threatening to reveal long-buried secrets that could obliterate his life as he knew it. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every passing minute, the weight of this threat combined with the burgeoning desire for reconnection consumed him. The nights grew restless as he laid awake, haunted by a growing recognition of his need for a family. Real love, instead of hollow acceptance. Every nerve in his body screamed as Michael stood at the cusp of a decision that could unravel him. How could he bear losing the empire he had fought to create? Yet, how could he allow himself to remain trapped in this lonely gilded tomb, banished from the warmth of real kinship? As the sunrise painted the skyline anew, Michael felt dizzy, an awareness dawning that everything would change the moment he chose which path to embrace. Another day began, but it was laden with uncertainty. Would this be the day he stepped forward to confront his past, or would he let fear dictate his future? His heart raced at the thought. How could he risk everything for something he'd never known? And yet that craving for connection tightened its grip. The tension became unbearable, leaving him on the precipice of something profound, something that could unravel or redefine him entirely. The dawn broke dimly, the soft light filtering through the expansive windows of Michael's penthouse. As he glanced out at the city, he realized that its vibrancy, which once brought him excitement, now reflected a life lived in isolation. The elation of past business victories felt muted against the stark reality of his solitude. He could almost hear the echoes of his own laughter, once present in boardrooms and celebrations, replaced by the deafening silence of his current existence. Determined to confront the disquiet that simmered within, he decided to visit Claire and her children again. His interactions with her had sparked a curiosity about family and connection, something he realized he desperately craved. Armed with a carefully prepared plan, Michael envisioned an ideal afternoon. A simple lunch at a nearby diner, maybe even a trip to the park. It was a small step, but for him it felt monumental, a commitment to finding a sense of belonging. As he navigated the streets of the city, the din of honking horns and chattering pedestrians faded into the background, providing a peculiar calm. He recognized the power of this choice. A taste of vulnerability he hadn't experienced in years. With every stride, the weight began lifting just a fraction, urging him forward into the unknown. Upon arriving at Claire's apartment, he was met with the familiar scent of home-cooked food wafting through the air. The sight of her bustling in the kitchen soothed him, though he felt an undercurrent of anxiety creeping in. Would she see him as just another wealthy stranger trying to play savior? Their conversation at lunch unfolded, a hesitant dance of deep-seated worries and glimmers of understanding. Claire spoke of the struggles she faced, the relentless cycle of bills, working late nights, and the hope she clung to for a better future for her children. Each word resonated as Michael recalled his own climbing journey, one marred by emotional disconnect from family. As they spoke, he began revealing pieces of his own story. Not the poised entrepreneur shrouded in wealth, but a man longing for companionship and acceptance. That afternoon, as Claire's children scampered around the park, Michael found himself playing catch. The laughter and lightheartedness felt foreign yet invigorating. With every throw, he could almost envision the patter of small feet beside him, a future he had long dismissed as impossible. Did responsibility and familial joy dispel comfort as he once knew it? An ache to reconcile with his brother surged again, an emotion he realized he could no longer turn a blind eye to. Returning home later that evening, Michael's heart raced as he sat down to process the day. He felt an urge to reach out to his brother, to attempt a conversation he had deferred for far too long. What would he say? How would he face the hurt and resentment that had built over the years? The risks were enormous, but there was an exhilarating sense of dread mixed with hope. Then came the crushing reminder of the looming threat. The whispers of his former partner cluttered his thoughts, a relentless tick-tock that warned him time was running out to secure not just his empire, but his burgeoning aspirations of true familial ties. It was late, the stars twinkling against the dark canvas outside his window, almost as if urging him onward. He clutched his phone, tapping the screen with trembling fingers, days of pent-up emotions bubbling to the surface. The moment was ripe, an opportunity for connection lay within grasp. But just as he was about to call, a ding from his phone startled him. It was a message from someone he hoped to never hear from again. The darkness crept back in, threatening to swallow the light he had found. The time had come to face his choices head-on. Would he reach out and risk rejection, or would he let the shadows of his past dictate his future? Michael sat in the dim glow of the city lights streaming through his penthouse window, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The message blinked ominously. It was from Alan, his former business partner. The specter of past mistakes loomed large before him, deepening the shadows he had just begun to shake off. He hesitated, his heart pounding. Alan was a reminder of shattered trust, a past littered with conflict, yet the pull to find resolution was just as strong as the need to confront his own fears. In the silence, he could almost hear Claire's laughter, the children's carefree voices. What was so frightening about choosing connection over conflict? Michael turned his attention back to the message. He had envisioned this moment as a rite of passage, a reclamation of his future, a step toward mending familial ties. With a deep breath, he considered a reply, but each word felt tinged with hesitation. Why was vulnerability so difficult? After what felt like an eternity of silence, he finally decided to ignore the message for now, a tactical retreat, as he rallied his thoughts about moving forward with his brother. Unsure of his direction, he thought back to his interactions with Claire. Where she found determination amid hardship, he had only ever known ambition shrouded in isolation. It wasn't just about professional success for him anymore. It was about relationships, about rebuilding a life filled with laughter and love. He needed to break the cycle that elevated profit over people. The following day, he resolved to reach out. His first act of courage came in the form of a phone call to his brother, one he had put off for years. As the phone rang, he felt his palms grow sweaty, the urgency of the moment flooding over him. When his brother answered, there was a tense pause like the stillness before thunder. "Hey, it's Michael." His voice trembled, steadier than he expected. "Michael?" His brother's voice was flat, layered with a distance that felt both familiar and chilling. They exchanged guarded pleasantries before Michael summoned the courage to broach the difficult topics. They spoke of past wounds, unvoiced grievances, and the uncomfortable silence that had stretched between them for too long. With each additional word, the air parted, offering a fragile hope for reconciliation. The conversation turned raw and honest when Michael shared his awakening, the yearning for connection he felt after his day with Claire's family. He spoke about the laughter of Claire's children, the vibrancy that punctuated their existence, which seemingly contrasted sharply against his isolated lifestyle. His brother replied slowly, the nuances of emotion creeping into his voice. "It's been easy to stay distant, hasn't it?" With that admission, a common ground emerged. Both had been trapped within the confines of their pride and hurt. The realization struck Michael. They were both victims in a game that had lost its meaning. That evening, as he contemplated the unresolved issues, he felt a shift. It wasn't just about a call, it was about willingly stepping into the pain they had avoided for years. Motivated by his newfound clarity, he decided it was time to return to Claire's home, this time not as a guest but as someone seeking a deeper connection. He wanted to offer support, not because he felt obligated, but because he genuinely wanted to contribute to something larger than himself. The following Saturday felt transformative. Arriving unannounced, he carried fresh groceries and a plan. As he knocked on the door, he was met with Claire's warm smile. It lit a spark within him, igniting his resolve to not only care for her and her children, but to explore how he could help others like her. But just as they began to settle into a comfortable ritual, Michael's phone buzzed again. This time a notification from his business, a reminder of the impending deadline from Alan that he had tried to forget. Pressure surged through him once more. Could he balance this burgeoning connection with the weight of his professional obligations? Would the shadows of his past continue to threaten the light he was beginning to embrace? He stood at the threshold of something profound, feeling both the thrill of hope and the weight of responsibility. The inner conflict bruised him but fueled his determination. The stakes were escalating. As he looked into Claire's eyes, Michael felt the swell of unfamiliarity. Would he prioritize the path toward connection or plunge back into the world he yearned to escape? A decision loomed, a pivotal moment where the ties between ambition and belonging would be tested. The future beckoned, yet the call of the past lingered with a promise of complications that could shatter his progress. The moment for action had arrived, and clarity was on the horizon. The next move could either cement his new life or irreversibly break all that he had begun to rebuild. Michael stood for a moment at the threshold, the clear line between what was familiar and what was possible hanging in the air. Claire's laughter echoed in his mind as he felt the weight of his decision crush down on him. Do I stay, or do I go? The urgent reminder from Alan loomed across his consciousness, but now, Claire's presence felt like a lifeline to a happiness he had forgotten existed. She tilted her head, her curiosity and warmth radiating through the doorway, sweetening the air between them. He stepped inside, feeling the shift already, perched between two worlds. As Claire guided him into the living room, the chaos of toys sprawled across the floor mirrored the turmoil inside him. He breathed deeply, eager to embrace this chaotic yet inviting ambiance. "How was your week?" Claire asked, her eyes gleaming with genuine curiosity. The simple question nudged him and he hesitated, grappling with the choice between honesty and the defense mechanisms he had honed over the years. "It was interesting," he finally replied. "I've been thinking a lot about the past." It was a half-truth but a necessary step into vulnerability. Her brow knitted slightly. "You mean your brother?" Michael nodded, feeling the weight of the unspoken expectation to elaborate. Sharing this part of himself was a step away from the guardedness that had defined much of his life. "I reached out. It was good, but there's so much more to unpack." Claire moved closer, her intent gaze urging him to continue. "I'm proud of you. That takes courage." The sincerity of her support cut through the fog of hesitation. He could feel his confidence flicker like a dying ember, hesitant, yet yearning to ignite into something brighter. He began to share not only about the call but how it had transformed his outlook on relationships. As he spoke, Claire listened intently, her presence grounding him. The memories of laughter filled the void that disconnection had carved out. Yet with each revelation, a mounting pressure resurfaced in his chest, reminding him of the waiting responsibilities at his business, of Alan's ultimatum. His thoughts spiraled, torn between two compelling realities. Could he continue this new path while grappling with his old life's demands? He felt tension coil within him, a physical sensation that rattled his ambition. "Michael, are you okay?" Claire's voice broke through his mental chaos. It was a simple question, but it unlocked layers of emotion he had buried beneath years of ambition. Staring into her compassionate gaze, he felt both naked and shielded. "I just want to make sure you're not taking on too much." The sincerity in her words stirred something deep within. His instinct was to shield himself, to maintain that polished exterior of the successful businessman. But what if he could learn to balance authenticity with responsibility? "I can handle it, Claire," he assured, but the words tasted stale. The truth was, he didn't know if he could. The realm of personal business was filled with risk, and finding stability in both would require a seismic shift away from the isolation that had served as his shield for too long. With every passing minute, the urgency from his business clashed with the emotional awakening here. Michael felt the walls close in. The competing demands stripped him of clarity. Before he could dwell on this inner storm, Claire's children burst into the room, their laughter illuminating the heaviness around him. "Uncle Michael!" they cheered, pulling him down to join them in their chaotic play. Their innocent joy enveloped him, bridging the divide between his worlds. He chuckled, embracing the moment while simultaneously being hyper-aware of the dissonance in his life. As he immersed himself in their games, a sliver of clarity pierced through. Could this connection with Claire and her children guide his choices? Would they help dismantle the barriers rooted in fear? Yet as he engaged, shadows of his past, primarily Alan, loomed larger. If he chose to dive deeper into this new life, would the repercussions with his former partner catch up to him? As the children tugged at his attention, he glimpsed out of the window, catching a glimpse of the restless city that had once been a mere backdrop to his relentless pursuit. With that glimpse came the reminder of the dual life ahead, one filled with light and laughter, and another tethered to accountability and deadlines. But the laughter around him felt more vivid than the shadows that lingered in his mind. In this moment he realized he had a decision to make, one that would either cultivate his new path or plunge him back into the darkness of his previous life. The moment grew heavy, charged with potential. He could either choose to fully embrace and invest in this newfound connection, or he could retreat back to the autonomy of his past. But could he truly turn away from Alan? The path forward bubbled with challenge, and as he glanced at the kids again, joy intermingled with the daunting urgency to make a choice. The stakes had never been higher. Was this the moment to redefine his future? As laughter echoed around him, the question burned brighter. Would Michael answer the call of connection, or would he falter at the hands of his past? The whirl of chaotic laughter surrounded him, anchoring Michael momentarily in the present. He found himself kneeling on the floor, surrounded by a barrage of toys as he played with the children. Their uninhibited joy felt contagious, an antidote to the weight that had settled on his chest. Each child's giggle punctured the tension, but beneath the playful facade, turmoil churned. As they built towers of blocks, Michael's thoughts lurked in the shadows. The exuberance of youth felt distant from the reality that loomed outside. Alan's demands echoed ominously in his mind, a specter of anxiety he couldn't shake. The contrast was stark, a childhood he hadn't embraced and the responsibility of adulthood. One of the children, a girl with bright blue eyes named Sophie, leaned closer, her innocent curiosity piercing through his reverie. "Uncle Michael, will you come back tomorrow?" she asked, her small hands clutching a stuffed animal. A grin broke through Michael's clouds of uncertainty. "Of course, Sophie," he replied, the words sticking a little on his tongue. Would he? Would he allow himself to break the cycle of self-imposed isolation? As the evening shadows deepened, Michael found himself in a corner of the living room, watching Claire engage with her children. She handled their chaos with grace, her laughter spilling freely, igniting warmth in the otherwise mundane space. He felt a pang of longing rip through him, a silent realization that he craved this connection, a peace he hadn't known he was searching for. But the relentless tug of his other life clawed at him. Visions of conference tables, negotiations, and the steady weariness of his corporate obligations danced through his mind. In that moment, he recognized the burden of his professional world, one that thrived on competition and success but lacked warmth and companionship. There schooled the dilemma. Could he sever ties with this life to grasp a new one filled with hope? "Michael?" Claire's voice drew him back. She stood by the doorway, watching him with an expression that blended concern and confidence. "You seem a million miles away. What's going on in that head of yours?" He took a deep breath, every muscle in his body taut as he considered the truth. The potential for deeper connection beckoned him, yet the stakes were high. "I'm just trying to figure things out," he managed to say, though it felt like a simplification of an exploding internal conflict. "Do you want to talk about it?" Her offer hung in the air, an invitation wrapped in sincerity. For a split second he wrestled with the thought. Should he invite vulnerability to the table? Did he even know how? His mind raced back to the call with his brother, the relief he felt in unearthing a connection he had neglected. Wasn't Claire embodying the same possibility for him now? The desire for emotional growth clashed with a suffocating shield he had forged in his business dealings. Maybe I should, but... He hesitated. The but loomed like a wall, barricading him from opening up entirely. Sometimes talking makes things clearer. Claire prodded gently. Her ability to strip down his defenses ignited a flicker of courage in him. The fear of emotional exposure wrestled with the prospect of a more authentic life. He closed his eyes, a vision of both futures presenting themselves to him. One path was familiar, laid out in neat rows of expected success. The other, uncharted, wove through laughter, uncertainty, and the budding love of a family atmosphere. Finally, he whispered, "I want this to be more, but I'm terrified of losing what I built, what I know." Claire stepped forward, her words warm and soothing. "What you've built is worth examining. But is it truly what you want?" As Michael took in her question, something inside clicked. The flicker of revelation ignited. He needed to confront what his successes truly meant, an examination of self beyond mere wealth. "I'll think about it," he replied slowly, the decision empowering yet heavy. The struggle for balance lay ahead, a path littered with challenging conversations, corporate obligations, and a yearning for connection. As night cloaked the room, the children nestled against Claire, their lulled breaths a reminder of what Michael stood to gain. But shadows of his past remained, veiled threats dangling above him. The pressing question now lay naked. Could he truly step into this new version of himself? Or would the pull of his corporate commitments drag him back into isolation? He turned back to Claire, who was watching him. A blend of expectation and understanding etched on her face. Sensing the stakes were rising, Michael prepared to make a choice not just for himself but for everyone around him. Would he embrace this chance for genuine connection, or would he flee back to the safety of solitude? The answers felt closer yet still out of reach, and as he considered them, he realized the time had come to confront Alan directly. The prospect filled him with both fear and determination. Was he ready to face the repercussions of his choices? The next morning, clarity bathed Michael in its glow as the sun nudged him from sleep. The light felt new, illuminating the shadows of doubts that had clouded his mind. He sat up in bed, the weight of the night's revelations pressing on him as he wrestled with the decision to confront Alan. It was due time to face the truth about his corporate life and see if it aligned with the man he aspired to be. In the past, Michael would have brushed off such contemplation as weakness. But today, sitting on the edge of his bed, he felt the tingle of courage boiling in his veins. He could dismiss the flame of connection that had ignited in him, or he could fan it into a warmth that enveloped his life. He chose the latter. After a quick shower and a hasty breakfast, he tossed on his tailored suit, an almost costume-like garment that reminded him of the business world he'd cultivated. Looking into the mirror, he practiced his approach to Alan, running through scenarios for the conversation he was determined to have. When he arrived at the office, the familiar scent of polished wood and multiple cups of stale coffee filled his nostrils. The hustle and bustle around him were as palpable as ever, a distracting backdrop to his internal turmoil. He moved through the maze of cubicles, nods and forced pleasantries exchanged with colleagues who remained oblivious to his emotional upheaval. Finally, confronted by Alan's door, he hesitated. A moment's thought colluded with a deep breath, anchoring him. Leaning against the cool wood, he reminded himself of Claire's words about examining what he had built and what it truly meant. The call to authenticity rang louder now than the ringing of phones in the vibrant office. He knocked, the sound reverberating in the silence of his resolve. "Come in," Alan's voice commanded, slashing into Michael's anticipation with its authoritarian edge. Stepping inside, Michael met Alan's scrutinizing gaze. The tension in the room shimmered like heat waves over pavement. "Michael, good to see you. Let's talk about the Anderson deal," Alan said. But Michael interrupted, surprising even himself. "Actually, I need to talk to you about something else first." The determination settled in his chest. It felt foreign yet necessary. "Something important?" Alan raised an eyebrow, folding his arms across his chest as if bracing for a storm. "More like something personal." The words hung heavily in the air, and Michael felt his heart quicken, every instinct screaming to pivot back to safe corporate jargon. But he pressed on. "I realize that my life outside of work is suffering. I've been isolating myself for too long, and I can't keep doing this." Each sentence flew from his mouth like a calculated strategy, yet for the first time he felt utterly raw and vulnerable. Alan's expression shifted from surprise to cold skepticism. "And what do you want me to do about that? This is a business environment, not a therapist's office." "Maybe I'm no longer willing to only see it as that," Michael shot back, his own surprise at the fierceness of his voice igniting a surge of adrenaline. "I want to focus on what truly matters, not just the profit margins. I'm considering scaling back, finding a better work-life balance," he declared. The satisfaction of uttering those words warming him, even as Alan's brow furrowed in disapproval. "You're joking, right? This company thrives on dedication. If you think anyone will accommodate a part-time player, you're mistaken." Alan's tone was a sharp reprimand, yet Michael stood his ground. "I've thought it through. Opting for more time with my family and loved ones is what I want now, what I need. If that doesn't fit the company's plans, then I'll have to reassess my priorities." A silence enveloped them like an unwelcome fog. Underneath the tense stillness, Michael felt something shift within him. The anticipation of repercussions was overshadowed by an exhilarating realization. He had taken a step forward, but Alan's disapproval hung in the air, a threat, a tether pulling him back to his old life. What if all Michael's hopes crumbled? Was he capable of leaving this world behind for something uncertain? The internal conflict roared, but he would not falter. This confrontation, no matter how nerve-wracking, defined the next chapter of his life. As Alan's lips twisted in disbelief, Michael took a breath, the weight of several decisions pushing down on him for the first time. The corporate beast he had served for so long could not imprison him now. The real question loomed larger than ever. What if stepping away led to loss? Or more terrifyingly, what if stepping away led to everything? In this moment of confrontation, clarity drove him onward. As he left the office, a new determination coursed through him. He couldn't go back. The stakes had never felt higher, yet for the first time, hope glimmered faintly on the horizon. But as he walked out, one final thought nagged at him, teasing his resolve. What new challenges awaited when he embraced this new path? The answers began to unfurl in his mind, thick with uncertainty, hinting at a confrontation with his own deepest fears. The journey was just beginning. The harsh fluorescent lights of the office hallway flickered overhead as Michael walked away from Alan's piercing stare. Each step seemed more assertive than the last, a testament to the resolve brewing within him. The world in front of him glimmered with possibilities, but it was shrouded in uncertainty as well, a duality he had never before contemplated so deeply. He pulled out his phone, intending to distract himself with mundane office emails. Instead, he found himself staring at Claire's message, her encouragement echoing in his mind. "Remember who you are and what you want," it read. At that moment, he realized that what he genuinely wanted was to be a father and a husband, roles he had neglected in the pursuit of corporate accolades. How had he let ambition overshadow love? Michael decided to embrace this inner conflict rather than flee from it. He took a seat on a nearby bench, casting a glance at his co-workers discussing quarterly reports with an almost robotic enthusiasm. That was no longer his rhythm. He contemplated what had truly brought him fulfillment. The memories of family gatherings, shared laughter, and heartfelt conversations flooded him. This was the life he craved, lived beyond the confines of his corporate identity. As he wrestled with these thoughts, his gut churned with anxiety. Questions spiraled. Was he being reckless? Was it wrong to prioritize personal relationships over career? The very essence of his worth felt under siege. He suddenly recalled Alan's voice, laced with judgment, casting a long shadow over his newfound courage. Pushing those thoughts aside, he curated a plan. If distancing himself from the corporation was on the horizon, he needed to explore what that meant for his professional identity. Could his skills translate into a new venture? His mind raced with possibilities: coaching, consulting, or perhaps even starting his own firm where values guided the business rather than pure profit. The next logical step was to share his intentions with those closest to him, particularly his wife, Rebecca, who had observed his decline from excitement to indifference. He had always considered her opinions, but now it felt imperative, an essential puzzle piece of the path ahead. Their kitchen table would become the arena for this conversation, a setting marked by trust and history. With a newfound sense of urgency, Michael left the office, setting forth to prepare for the conversation that could alter everything. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden hues through the trees as he navigated the streets. A metaphor his heart clung to, the transition from one phase to another filled with potential warmth. Arriving home, a serene calm enveloped him, but shadows of anxiety flickered at the edges. Rebecca was in the kitchen, the aroma of her signature pasta swirling around him like a comforting embrace. Every fiber of his being delighted in this moment, yet steeled themselves for the weight of the discussion that loomed. As he stepped into the kitchen, a part of him wanted to keep things light, to wade into the conversation with ease. But deep within, he knew that trivialities would not serve him now. Life was asking for authenticity, and it was time to summon the courage to speak his truth, however unsettling it may be. "Rebecca," he began, the kitchen suddenly feeling both expansive and constricting. "There's something important I need to share with you about my work, and what I truly want from life." He watched her shoulders tense slightly, the knife dropping onto the cutting board with a dull thud, signaling the gravity of his words. This was the moment where everything could shift, where he could risk everything he had built for the chance of something profound. His heart raced at the prospect. Was he ready to embrace the vulnerability that lay ahead? Could he bear the weight of the consequences that would follow? As he began to reveal his thoughts, the kitchen felt charged with tension that could spark growth, or potentially tear apart the very fabric of their life together. Would she understand? Would she accept the new direction he yearned to take? A conflict bigger than his career awaited, but Michael gripped the hope that this was not just about him. It was about them. The stakes were rising, and so was his fear, one he was finally ready to confront. Michael took a breath, each inhalation a battle against the weight of unspoken truths. He watched as Rebecca wiped her hands on a dishcloth, her brow slightly furrowed, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. This wasn't just a conversation. It was a potential pivot point that could redefine their lives. "Lately I've been thinking about my work," he continued, words slipping out like hesitant droplets of a leaky faucet. "And what it's becoming to me." He focused on her face, hoping to find some glimmer of understanding in her eyes. "I feel like I've lost touch with what truly matters to me." Rebecca's expression darkened slightly. Are you saying you want to leave your job? There was an incredulity in her voice, a defensive edge creeping in as if preparing for combat. I'm saying that I want to redefine what success looks like for me, he admitted. I've been so focused on climbing that corporate ladder, on the promotions, the accolades, that I've lost sight of my family and what we can build together. I want a life that reflects our values, not just my ambitions. The silence that followed was thick, a palpable tension that settled between them like an unwelcome guest. And you think abandoning everything we've built is the answer? She questioned, her voice steady but tinged with hurt. We've sacrificed so much for your career, Michael. He felt the sting of her words. I know. But I can't keep sacrificing my happiness for something that may not bring me joy. I want to be present for our children. I want to make memories. She leaned against the countertop, a fortress of uncertainty. Michael, I understand that you're struggling, but everything's on the line. What if this doesn't pay off? What if we lose it all? He knew that her fear was valid, that the implications of his desires reached far beyond their kitchen. Yet, with every response, he felt an ember of determination growing inside him. What we risk losing is what we've turned our backs to all these years, our connection, our family time. I owe it to myself and to you to explore this. Rebecca's eyes narrowed. She wasn't ready for this conversation, but contrary to the dread that filled the initial moments, a part of Michael felt exhilarated. This was not just about a career shift, it was an assertive claim on his identity. What if I could start consulting instead, or even coaching others, using what I've learned over the years to help others find what I'm still searching for? He watched her expression soften slightly, but the skepticism lingered. You're really serious about this? Yes, he confirmed, his tone firming. I've spent so long tethered to expectations that weren't really mine. I want to help others redefine their own success, just like I'm trying to do. In that moment, Michael realized that beyond just seeking a career change, he was striving to lead by example in his own life. He wasn't merely searching for a vocation. He was forging a new pathway, one that could potentially inspire both of them. Let's talk about it, she finally murmured, the cautious optimism in her voice at odds with her earlier trepidation. But you need to be committed to it. It's going to take time and hard work. I'm willing to put in the effort. I believe in this. They stood in the kitchen, surrounded by remnants of dinner and the lingering warmth of domesticity, knowing that the real work was just beginning. But the festering worries lingered at the edges of his mind. What would Alan's reaction be to his newfound aspirations? How would his colleagues perceive this shift? The question gnawed at him as the evening settled into a heavy silence, the conversation sinking into the fabric of their lives, rippling with potential. Michael understood that confronting the fears of uncertainty would be a relentless endeavor. Yet the road to personal fulfillment often had to thread through the thickets of doubt. He envisioned Alan's dismissive laugh echoing in his ears, an impending confrontation waiting to rend his ambitions. As he retired to bed that night, he lay there awake, grappling not only with strategic plans for his future, but the realization that the most daunting challenges often lay just beyond the horizon. Was he prepared to face an inevitable confrontation with Alan? Would he have the courage to defend the life he was striving to build? With the dawning of another day came the weight of a new challenge, one that could either solidify his resolve or send tremors through his aspirations. The morning arrived, vibrating with the electricity of change. Michael awakened early, the sound of the neighborhood stirring outside like soft percussion on a drum. With a sense of urgency, he grabbed his laptop and retreated to his makeshift office, a corner of the living room distinctly marked by the clutter of the past few months. A harried intersection of toys and papers. Tapping at the keyboard, he created a rough outline for his consulting business, a side venture that could potentially bloom into something meaningful. As he organized his thoughts, he remembered the many workshops he had attended over the years. He felt an unfamiliar flutter of excitement. He had always loved teaching, sharing insights gleaned from his years in corporate strategy. But had he ever truly considered how much those experiences could impact others? This was his chance to embrace the role of a mentor. He crafted bullet points outlining his vision. At the core was the idea of guiding individuals through their own journeys of discovery, much as he was attempting to navigate his. The words leapt off the screen. Personal success redefined. Growth through authenticity. He couldn't help but smile. The enthusiasm was contagious, yet lurking beneath this surface joy was a fear born of uncertainty. The ghost of Alan haunted him, memories of their past conversations, and Alan's relentless drive whispering doubts in his ear. What would happen when he shared his plans with him? Michael's resolve was buoyed by a fleeting thought. Perhaps Alan would be supportive, but the more realistic undertones of his imagination scaled the walls of optimism, revealing the potential fallout. Alan's survival of the corporate jungle depended on traditional measures of success. What would he say when faced with Michael's shift towards something so unconventional? After breakfast, he found Rebecca sitting with a steaming cup of coffee, eyes still heavy from sleep. She observed him as he maneuvered between excitement and anxiety, a tightrope walk he had become adept at since their conversation. "Did you sleep at all?" she asked, concern seeping into her tone. "Not really," he admitted, "just laying out my thoughts." Michael hesitated but then decided to let her in on his early brainstorm. "I started drafting an outline for my consulting business." Her expression shifted, curiosity breaking through her morning fog. "Really? What's it about?" "I want to help others redefine success," he explained, buoyed by her interest. "My own journey is an example of what I think others need. Step away from just chasing the next promotion and focus on what truly matters to them." Her smile widened, but he noticed the glint of worry in her eyes. "That's great, Michael. But I know what this means. Are you ready for everything that comes with it?" He took a moment grappling with the question. Was he really prepared for the storm that could accompany this pursuit? "Honestly, I think it's a risk worth taking, but I also know it might come with challenges." A thoughtful silence enveloped them, a space brimming with potential yet tangled in apprehension. No longer was he merely surviving the grind. He was navigating through uncertainties, propelled by a hope anchored in a desire for change. Each detail he penned not only cultivated his business but also a deeper understanding of his own values. He craved authenticity in his life, the very essence that had been dulled by years of conformity. As they sipped their coffee, he realized the stakes had risen. This was not only about him building a new career path but also about reshaping his identity in the process. He found himself at the precipice of something monumental. What if Alan's reaction turned that chance into a crushing defeat? He quickly began to formulate a plan for engaging Alan, a confrontation that couldn't be avoided, one that he both dreaded and craved. Each heartbeat drummed louder with the weight of upcoming decisions. With Rebecca's support, Michael felt invincible, yet he remained trapped in a web of self-doubt. Was he strong enough to face Alan and defend the future he now envisioned? The looming conversations with Alan required more than just courage. They demanded a robust mechanism for safeguarding his aspirations. Would he falter? Could he articulate the profound changes unfolding within him? Michael sat back, closing his laptop for a moment, breathing deeply. He was crossing a threshold, and soon, the path to his future would require him to be unapologetically himself. Would he face the music? Or would he fade back into the shadows of a life half-lived? As he prepared to tackle the day with renewed vigor, an unexpected thought sent him spiraling. What if Alan was not the only one who would challenge his new journey? Perhaps his co-workers, too, would rally against change, an unseen adversary lying just beneath the surface. The crossroads of reality stretched before him, and the choice between maintaining status quo or boldly stepping into the unknown was becoming increasingly clear. How would he manage the fallout? How much was he willing to sacrifice? Michael awoke to the dawn of a new reality, the sun filtering through his window casting golden rays that illuminated the corners of his penthouse. The palpable tension from the previous days gave way to the excitement of possibility, the clarity of purpose blossoming within him. He was no longer just a businessman. He was on the brink of becoming a catalyst for change, not just in his life, but in the lives of others. As he surveyed the pristine surface of his polished wooden desk, thoughts raced through his mind. Today he would confront Alan, a poignant moment of truth that represented not just the stakes of his career, but also the future he envisioned. A life intertwined with purpose, authenticity, and connections that mattered. He reached for his phone, scrolling through Claire's messages filled with warmth and encouragement. They reminded him of the fulfillment that came with opening himself up to others, something he had long buried under corporate ambition. If he could feel this vibrant, this alive, then he owed it to himself to pursue that life wholeheartedly. Arriving at the office, his heart thumped steadily in his chest, anticipation mixing with a rebellious breeze of determination. The typical office chatter felt dull today, a backdrop to the crescendo of clarity he had achieved. Each familiar face stirred anxiety within him, but he pressed forward, ready to shed the layers of self-doubt that had once defined him. Stepping into Alan's office, he felt a wave of nostalgia sweep over him. This room had been the birthplace of countless ambitious strategies and profits, but today it would serve as a battleground for something far more consequential. "Michael," Alan greeted, feigning camaraderie as his steely eyes appraised him. The atmosphere crackled with tension, a warning sign that betrayed Alan's distrust. "Alan," Michael replied, drawing a breath deep enough to quell the tide of fear rising within him. He positioned himself, firm yet composed. "We need to talk about my role here and what it means for my future." Alan leaned back in his chair, a skeptical eyebrow raised. "What's this about then? Are you backing out of the Anderson deal?" "No, I'm backing out of the narrative that has dictated my life for too long. I'm pursuing a new path, consulting, coaching. I want to help people redefine their success. I'm no longer committed to the game we've been playing." The silence that followed was deafening, the weight of his words hanging heavily like storm clouds. Alan's expression shifted, a concoction of disbelief and hostility swirling within him. "You think you can just throw away everything we've worked for? The moment you step back, the company will expect that from you. You can't just change the rules." "Perhaps," Michael asserted, "but I refuse to play a game where I lose sight of what truly matters. I am seeking balance in a life that nurtures relationships over relentless ambition." The tension erupted in the room, Alan's voice rising. "And what do you think your colleagues will think? They will see you as a weakling, someone who can't handle the responsibility." "You are missing the point," Michael countered, a mix of resentment and determination rushing through him. "This isn't about weakness, it's about strength. The strength to choose what brings fulfillment rather than empty accolades. Those who see that shift as weakness have misunderstood my journey. I won't conform to that narrative any longer." Without waiting for Alan to respond, Michael turned toward the door, aware of the gaze fixed upon him, one filled with resentment, but also, perhaps, begrudging respect. As he exited, a profound sense of liberation surged through him. He felt lighter, unburdened, as if he had shed the shackles of his corporate identity. In the parking lot, sunlight filtered through tree leaves almost as if the universe was applauding his decision. He felt revitalized, bolstered by the idea that he could embark on a journey so much wider than the ambitions that once ensnared him. The drive home was invigorating, each traffic light a reminder of his newfound freedom and commitment to personal authenticity. As he stepped through the familiar threshold of his home, he took in the sights and sounds, the laughter of his children radiating warmth, the sight of Rebecca's smile anchoring him. Rebecca looked at him expectantly, sensing the transformation that lingered in the air. "How did it go?" "It was challenging, but it's done. I told Alan what I needed," he said, clarity in every syllable. "And now it's time to pivot this life toward a fulfillment that is worth seeking." Her expression softened, filled with an understanding that transcended words. Michael smiled, the genuine kind that radiated from the depths of his being. They sat together, mapping out his business ideas, recognizing that this was not merely about professional aspirations, but about a deeper connection to their family life and shared goals. Together they laid the groundwork, discussing what his consulting venture would look like, how he could inspire those searching for their own balance. Weeks passed, and with each consultation and coaching session, Michael unraveled the fears of others just as he had confronted his own. The connections he fostered sparked a fire within him that combined purpose with joy. His self-image transformed through interaction, seeking out relationships rich and full rather than superficial business engagements. As he stood on the cusp of his launch day, Michael marveled at the journey he had undertaken. Contentment settled within him, the kind that rooted deep, interwoven with the laughter of his children and the support from Rebecca, who inspired him at every turn. In one decisive moment he had conquered the shadows that threatened his dreams and emerged not just as a businessman, but a partner, a father, and a guiding light for many. As he reviewed his notes one final time before presenting to his clients, Michael felt an effulgent gratitude wash over him. This was his moment of achievement, a synthesis of dreams undefined and fears confronted, a celebration of regaining what the chase for success had once compromised. In that clarity he understood. It was never just about being a millionaire in business. It was about becoming a millionaire in life, a wealth cultivated through love, connection, and authenticity. Now at this juncture filled with promise and transformation, Michael leaned forward. Will you choose to redefine what success means to you? Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about this empowering ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this courageous conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.